my lashes with me while I tell you about some of the best advice I've gotten since starting grad school. I just finished year 3 of my PhD program, and as I was doing some reflections of this year, I was just thinking about some of the good advice I've gotten from different advisors and different people in my circle in the past 3 years, and I thought that'd be, I don't know, something to share. My name is Jasmine. I am a PhD candidate in psychology, and like I said, I just wrapped up my 3rd year like a few weeks ago. First thing isn't necessarily an advice that I got while I was in grad school, but it's played a huge role in my grad school experience. That is, your mentors absolutely matter, okay? And it matters in the sense that your mentor should care about you as a person alongside you as a scholar. They should not just care about you as a scholar, they should also care about you as a person. I've had a lot of interesting experiences with mentors, and for context, none of this advice is in order. I didn't write any of this down. This is just straight from the dome. Another important advice I've gotten since starting grad school is to network far and wide, because you never know. And what this means is if there's someone that you're interested in their work, you want to hear their thoughts about this, or if you want to ask them a question about this, you should just email them. And I know that that's kind of a hot take, especially in academia. People are always like, well, you shouldn't just cold email. Whatever. I think you absolutely should. That is probably the main reason how I got into grad school, which I could talk about in another video, is just by emailing people, asking them to set up times to meet, to chat and whatnot. But in grad school, you should do that with anybody and everybody. Even if there's somebody that's not in your exact field, even if it's someone who doesn't do this type of work that you do, because you truly never know. This advice has really changed my grad school game, because when I started networking with people who aren't just in psychology, and I started to like share my research and just getting to know people outside of the field, I started getting a lot better opportunities, because they would just say like, oh, like that's interesting, you should think about this. Or they'll introduce me to people who are more who do more research along the lines of mine or whatever. And those are usually the people that you will see again and again. So if you're gonna stay in academia, you should just remember that academia is really small. Sometimes it's easier said than done, but don't compare yourself to other people. And again, like I said, I know it's a lot easier to just be like, oh, look, I'm not gonna compare, than it is to like actually not compare. But you truly just never know what people's circumstances are, and it doesn't really do any good to compare yourself to other people, especially like, I don't know, I was really lucky to not have a cohort that was competitive, but I know that some cohorts are really competitive. Some people are really catty, and it just makes for not a good time. So it's always better to take the approach of collaborating and making friends and like being genuine than it is to like be fake and mean. And some writing specific tips that have really changed the game for me. So the first one is, when you're writing, doesn't matter what type of writing you're doing. If you're writing up results, if you're doing a meta-analysis, if you're doing like a lit review, doesn't matter if you're doing like, I don't know, theory building, but the most important thing to remember is you're telling a story. So when you're writing and you're struggling with different aspects of whatever you're working on, think about it as a story. Like, what part of the story are you telling with this specific piece? And with a good story, you could think about what are really important elements to stories and just work from it that way. Because initially going into this data set, I had an idea for a paper and I didn't know what my results would look like. And so of course I did analysis first, and before I thought I was going to have this story to tell, and then turns out that was not the story. And then I started panicking because the results showed something different than I thought. And my advisor, she was like, girl, it's okay, because what you really have to think about is how you can spin this. You're telling a story with the data. The data is like the theme of the story, or whatever it is that you're doing, the theory, whatever it is, you're telling a story. So think about the story there, like what are important parts of the story. So when you're like thinking about your lit review, you don't know what's important to include, what aspects you should highlight, what aspects might not be relevant. I need to know to be able to understand the story that you're telling. Another good writing advice that I got is It's easiest to edit on a full page. Like, you can't edit if you have nothing on paper. And writing is rewriting. So the first thing that you write should just be almost like a stream of consciousness writing. You should just write all your thoughts about a topic, because you can't revise, you can't edit if you don't have anything written. And like, granted, that sounds like, well, duh, you can't edit if you have no words on the page. But again, it's true. You need to get some words down. And stream of consciousness has always really worked for me, because then I can start to see, okay, like, what am I thinking about? How do I build upon this? Another writing advice that I probably should listen to more is to get somebody else's eye before you submit it anywhere. Because you've been looking at that piece of paper, that writing, that whatever for so long, you probably don't even notice the little mistakes. So make sure before you submit it to have someone read it, because I've definitely had feedback that's like, the grammar, girl, the grammar. Other important advice just in general is learn how to manage your time. This is something that I have not gotten down, because grad school, especially once you reach candidacy, is a really independent journey. Like, it's mostly just you writing, you coming up with ideas, you doing things, and no one's really gonna like, I mean, if you have really good advisors, they might like give you suggestions and whatnot, but no one's really gonna be there to like tell you exactly what to do all the time. So you're gonna need to learn how to manage your time and how to like plan ahead, which again, this is something that I suck at doing. I have not gotten down yet, but I am definitely working on it. Like, join writing groups or host writing groups. If you've been following me for a while, you know that I do have writing groups. And since the semester ended, I have not restarted that yet, but that is definitely coming. Is something that I think in the beginning of grad school, I was like, oh yeah, like I'm fine. I always want to write. I don't need to like be working with other people to write, because I like writing. Wrong. You get to a point where writing just seems like kind of like a job. And this might just be a writing block. This might just be like, I don't know, something that you feel temporarily, but that moment will likely come. And that is definitely a time where you want to have like other people, accountability partners and whatnot. Not even just for writing. Like, having accountability partners in general is a great thing. Else that I really learned during grad school is that rejection truly is the norm. And again, all these things were said to me before grad school, but it's one thing to like hear things before you actually get into it, and it's another to be living in it and being like, this is exactly what they were talking about. That's how I feel with rejection. Rejection is the norm, but just because it's the norm doesn't mean that you shouldn't like put yourself out there and shouldn't apply for things that you want to apply for. For me personally, I apply for so many grants, so many applications. I mean, scholarships, grants, awards, opportunities, whatever, because you never know. And if you, for example, if I apply for 20 things and I get 3 of them, I get 3 of them. And I know that the odds are not great all the time, but something that I always preach is applying for internal grants. And granted, I'm really blessed to go to a school with a lot of funding, like internal funding opportunities. So those might not be available like everywhere, but since they are to me, what I try to do is apply for like department level or at least just like university level grants, because I think honestly this year alone from internal grants I probably got like $9,000-$10,000. Just because rejection is the norm doesn't mean that you shouldn't still apply. The things that people said about grad school that like didn't hit until it hit was to find a hobby outside of school. Oh my goodness, this may seem like it obvious. Sometimes, like when I started grad school, I felt like my hobbies were always like the first to go, which sucks because then when I needed them the most, it was like hard to get back. You know, because while you're in grad school, again, life is happening while you're in grad school. It's not like life is gonna stop. So do what you gotta do. And also like, don't forget to have fun. Don't forget to prioritize yourself. Don't forget to like travel and do all the fun things. But you're in grad school. You're still if you're like a traditional student, you're probably in your 20s. If you're a non-traditional student, maybe you're younger, maybe you're older, but it doesn't matter because life is happening. Life in a life, okay? So, yeah. Okay, also, if you have not seen my new stickers, this one says, oh, hello, I'm a struggling grad student. Sorry, I can't read backwards. This one says, oh, muscles and manuscripts. Let's see. This one says Black Scholars Matter because they do. This one says theory is my love language. And I don't have my other ones on here, but if you're interested, you could go check out my Etsy. It's Jasmine Customs Shop. But I just had to throw that in there. I'm going to rapid fire some other things that have really changed, advice that I got that really changed the game. Find a citation manager, stick to it. Find a note system that works for you, stick to it. Don't fall for the productivity trap. You don't need to try the newest thing on the market. You don't need to do like fancy, crazy things. Just do what works for you and stick to it. The taxes are awful. Prepare for the taxes. Get a tax person if you can. Go to your school, do whatever. But the taxes are so bad. They're as bad as everyone said. So definitely be prepared for that. Learn what active reading is. And I guess I could tell you what active reading basically means. While you're reading, you're taking notes. While you're reading, you're thinking about, oh, how does this apply to X, Y, and Z? How does this apply to my own work? What do I think about this? Having opinions, thoughts, or like, oh, this may be connected to this. Let me write this down. That's kind of what active reading is. And that really is important for writing, because when you can't write, when you're stuck with writing, read. Other things, budget wisely. I'm personally really bad with money. I'm trying to do better with that because I get paid once a month, which is not the best, obviously. And it's a hot mess. So you need to learn how to budget. I don't have a budget and I don't stick to one, but do better than I do. And the last one that I will share in this part 1 of advice, some of the best advice that I got during grad school, is to learn how to set boundaries. And that's really easy, like a lot easier said than done. But when it comes down to it, setting boundaries is scary, especially if you're new to setting boundaries. Setting boundaries can be scary if you're setting boundaries with your professor, with your friends, with coworkers and whatnot. But sometimes we need to say no. Sometimes we need to understand what we need for ourselves. And sometimes we need to take a step back and fill our own cups and think about what we need as people before what we need and what we can do as scholars. So that is all I have for you in this really short random video of random advice that I got during grad school that was really important. Let me know what else you guys want me to talk about. Again, sorry that this is kind of a hot mess. I decided to do my lashes, so I must, document this, but also look at them. Okay, this one. Okay, we're actually not going to look at the inner corner. I always talk about how I struggle with the inner corner. So let's just not talk about that. But the rest of them look pretty decent. All my materials are in total $30, and they usually last a week if I can make it last with good technique. Sometimes I take them off every 2-3 days. But anyways, that's all I have for you friends. Thank you for watching, and I hope I'll see you in the next video.